Okay, so what you see, 22 cards. Well, not really. You only see 10, but they're part of 22 cards of the tarot called the Major Arcana, which means the greater secrets, as opposed to the Minor Arcana, which means the lesser secrets, such as this portion of the deck. I think it's like 48 different cards. Quite a few cult cards, interesting. And basically, I've taken out the first 10 cards of the Major Arcana, and the reason it's called the Greater Secrets is because the Minor Arcana, which is this deck over here, it's separate. It's based on numerology and the 4 elements. So you got 2 of Cups. So you got Cups, which is water, which is emotion, which is energy emotion, which is salt, and water is the perfect conduit for energy, for life, for emotion, for energy and motion. And the cups contain, so you often get sometimes in cards where the water is being poured out. 2 represents, and you got numerology, so you got 2 represents a union of 2 ones meeting, 2 ones that are separate. 3 represents the unity of 2 in creating 3, which is the creation. It's the Empress in the Major Arcana, which is right here. And that's number 3 in the Major Arcana, which represents harvest and kind of like sex. And the sex of the first 1 and 1 coming together, and the child, the harvest, the fruit that is gained from the seeds that were sowed between these two this lady and gentleman, who quite ever so gently, or maybe not so gently, made an exchange and reaped a harvested rewards based on combined effort. So if you've got 2 of Pentacles, which is Earth, you'd say it's meeting somebody, getting into business with someone, or into an arrangement, maybe living with someone, because Pentacles is about earthy stuff like this. It's about protecting your wealth, and it's about... Things a bit blurry. Let me just see if I can fix that for you. So, guys. So, it's still blurry, isn't it? That's the 4 of Pentacles, and this man is like isolated from his community, from his city, from home, with a wall between him, sitting on a box. And 4 is, as opposed to 2 ones coming together, 4 is, once you've established the Empress, number 3, you go to 4, which is the Emperor. So once, the idea is, in one way of putting this quickly for those that know a bit of tarot, the Fool represents 0, which is the womb of potential. It's the palette of infinite color and everything that is possible. Alright? And the butterfly represents that, the transformation, the 4 elements of earth, air, fire, water. And when he meets the magician in card number 1, on his journey to become all these different, go through these processes, he becomes the hermit at the end of the first 10. And I'm looking at the first 10, and I like that I said 10 on 333 in the video. That's cool numerologically. 333 numerologically, interestingly enough, actually corresponds with the numbers of the letters of... Well, actually, I don't know. What does it correspond to? I got it mixed up with 5. 555 corresponds to the letters N-E-W, which is new, and 5 represents a transition point and something new, an initiation between pillars. And 1 pillar represents the first 1, 2, 3, 4. And you can kind of put the Fool over here because he's 0. It's just the womb of potential that is chasing opportunity, and he's got to be aware of, he's got to have faith. And the idea is when you get to the end of the Major Arcana of the world, it represents a state where he basically gets back to the top of the mountain, that he might also be here as the hermit. He gets on top of this mountain and reflects at the end of this journey we're about to go through together. He goes through this journey, and it's a yin yang. Okay, you got on card number 1, the Magician, 2, the High Priestess, 3, the Empress, 4, the Emperor, which is just he which takes the pure palette and the color and he channels it using an instrument, and then his organic form into the organic earth. So he's using his earth. Here, the difference is that he is the instrument that channels it into earth, but he needs to utilize an external instrument of the earth in order to channel the energy from source, from Godhead, from the top. And this all comes originally from the Kabbalah, and they actually hid a lot of knowledge, ancient esoteric knowledge, in all of this. And they burned down Alexandria and a lot of stuff, and they hid this in normal playing cards. So when you see like spades, clubs, hearts, diamonds, that's actually pentacles, swords, cups, and wands. Wands for clubs, you know. You can do a reading with the court cards, because you got the court cards too, the same as the tarot. The page, the queen, the king, the knight, and the jack is the page. And it survived as what common people would use as a game, just like, yeah, it's fun. But there's a lot more to it. To those with the knowledge, card number 5, the Hierophant, with those, kind of like the magician, now he's channeling what is learned. And even if you can see his fingers, 2 above, 2 down, and 1 to the side, binding them. The thumb that's to the side is underneath the fingers that are pointing to the top, and on top of the 2 fingers that are pointing down. So I see that as like a balance and a middle point of like being a buffer between channeling energy or information from source, but he puts it into word, and he translates information and gives advice. And this card is about seeking special counsel, advice, maybe even in a specialized place for that particular advice. It can be seeking legal, the proper agency or specialist to give you the information you need to be pragmatic. And this represents Taurus, and it's a very pragmatic card, because it can represent this idealistic, dogmatic, sometimes very opinionated and convictions and belief and way of conducting affairs. So these are people that feel a sense of wisdom and experience and knowledge and conviction enough, where it's good to listen to them, but they can be a bit hard-headed sometimes, and a few blind spots, and a bit stuck in their dogma or limitations if they go overboard with it and get too lost in their idealism. The Hierophant being card number 5, the 2 pillars, 5 represents the pivotal point between 1, 2, 3, 4, and I should take out 10. Yeah, that makes more sense. 5 is the middle point, so take that out. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so you got the yin yang. There's one half of it, and there's the other half. And the yin yang has a seed, and that's the seed of yin that is contained within the tree of yang, and that's the seed of yang, the fruit that is contained within the flowered, fully manifested state of yin. So you could say this is like winter solstice, that fully manifested yin state, summer solstice, and then you'd say that the actual seed would be, this situation would be, if it's turning back to yin, yang going to yin would be summer going to winter. So you'd have autumn, and then you have yang inside and fully manifested winter solstice yin. So the days start getting longer, and you would go from a yin to a fully manifested yang state, a tree. Yeah. And basically, it's that idea is you got 1, 2, 3, 4, because you got 2 seeds, 2 opposing seeds, each blossoming into trees that are dropping more seeds, and that's the basic cyclic function of everything in the I Ching and all the forces of nature that they use as the symbolism to depict the divine and all this stuff. So if you view this as like a figure 8, okay, now it might be better if I do that. It might be better. I laid them out in a way that they were connected to represent the dimensions and how they link. And I did it originally so that the first 3 cards, the Magician, the High Priestess, and the Empress, represent the 3rd dimension. This guy represents channeling the pure energy of potential from 0, the womb, channeling that pure potential, using instruments, using language, research, communication. These people are very apt, they're very intelligent, very communicative because they're intelligent. They're calculating, they're planning, strategic, in control, and they initiate things, and they know how to work with their elements, and they know how to take information from source and make it something real, and take potential and make it manifest. Yeah, and it's that old age symbol of yin, kind of like the Visca Pisces, and then you got the yang. So you got the womb of light, and you got the womb of darkness. Sorry, the void, and the womb of darkness, and the rod of light. And you got that line going through a horizontal line, a vertical line going through a horizontal line, symbolism of the 2 masculine forces. All right, but the one that's horizontal, which is like the yoni, is actually the masculine color of yang, and the one that is more like the lingam is actually yin. So it shows that each one is displayed in a certain way physically, but its color suggests that it has a nature and a design that is quite the opposite. And every man is a bitch, every woman is a bastard. So you have bitch-based bastards and bastard-based bitches. I don't know. Maybe there's something to talk about sometime. But the idea is you got 4. And you got a figure 8. And originally, and this is why this is relevant, this is the crux of it. Originally, there was a circle with a line. And it had 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then they took the circle and they put it at the start, and they took the line out and put it in front. Alright, and what that represents is like there's an infinity, and it's really 8, because in 8 you've got 1 infinity flow, you've got 2 variables and 2 polarities working together, you've got 3, which is the Hierophant, which is the juncture point between yin and between yang. And this is yin. Yin is the development of a pure potential being conceived from the womb, 0, through the lingam of 1, into the physical soil, using like this phallical instrument, right? And then this is that connection now of establishing pure yin, which is 0, to pure yang, which is the Magician, 1. And this is the pillars representing those 2. The pomegranates is the fruit that Persephone ate, and she had access to the underworld with Hades, and she'd be there for a time of autumn and winter, half of the year, and then she'd come back, and Hecate would be pleased, the mother, I think, who's responsible for harvest, which is the Empress, which is the next color. I think that's the mother of this chick. And basically what this girl represents is she represents the idea, in keeping with the painting metaphor, if this is the paint and the pure potential in the womb, the darkness that's hidden in the womb, the color, the infinite color that's hidden in the womb of darkness, and it's all that transformation and opportunity, and the consciousness, the sun, that is the solar source of everything that is conceived, and the opportunities of transformations that have risks, and you need to heed your intuition when you're doing so. That is absolute yin, womb of darkness, but full of color. And this is the absolute yang, kind of rod of light that goes through that womb of darkness, and in that interaction it creates a conception. And this is like that this is like falling pregnant, and this is like giving birth. So I guess in a way this is like falling in love and seeing an opportunity, and this is actually taking that feeling and channeling it into each other, and giving it into the earth, and combining all your elements to conceive. And this represents 2 things coming together, and the reason that's there with the pomegranate that Persephone used to go to the underworld is that this place represents the underworld, and that we exist in this world of duality. At the moment, it seems that, in a lot of ways it explains a lot and makes sense. you need the opposite. Everything is an equal and opposing reaction. You know. So this basically takes the idea of, okay, this is the paint we've got. These are the tools: the earth, air, fire, water. That's the wands and the cups and all that stuff right there. This is the stuff that's inside the sack. So he has no idea until he meets the magician. This is the journey each person goes on in their development. This is basically, you could even look at this and say, this is a child being born, the first 5 years of their life, and the next 5 years of their life, or cycles that we go on, of like going between starting journeys and new beginnings, and channeling that and getting our resources together and communicating at least to ourselves a clear plan and directing it into action, initiation with like a wand, casting a spell with channeled intent, with channeled sourced energy into physical form, developing that connection and the conception that happens more metaphysically before it ting pops out the oven and it's a full harvest. So that could represent kind of like, if you see zero in terms of geometry, or like Kabbalah, the idea of there being infinite light originally, and came from the Kabbalah. Each card of the major arcana links to an arm on the tree of life from the system of mysticism that predates the Bible, that's more oriented in philosophy than religion and dogma. And that's the Kabbalah, spelled K, Q, or C. And the scrolls of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are actually doctrines on earth, air, fire, water, or body, mind, spirit, emotion, and how to manage these things. And they took all these things, put them in the Bible, and they've changed it so much and turned a lot of things inside out, upside down, omitted, added. It's fucked. Totally different now. But there's truth in all kinds of texts, and in the Kabbalah and this story of zero, this infinite world of light that created a lightning flash and an idea and manifested into a physical plane, established communication back to itself, and that's what two is. Two is that taking that first step of one, which is initiating that first step off the mountain. Where have you fallen? Alright, so two is kind of like, now you have an idea of something you've seen, something you're thinking about, dreaming about, your intuition is telling you, and yeah, you're cultivating a metaphysical blueprint in the, I guess, kind of in the underworld, and you're getting an idea by listening to she who whispers the deepest truths from the underworld, listening to your intuition. So this is kind of like zero becomes one, pure yin becomes pure yang, and creates itself a physical plane of earth, air, fire, water, and then establishes in number two a dialogue with itself. So the reflection of the physical mirror from the source face that's faceless and infinite, and has an infinite desire to create and give and provide, created a mirror that has an infinite desire to be kind of greedy and receive, so that it could fill its own cup. It's like a mirror, and literally a magician channels pure potential of zero and the sun into the four elements, establishes contact back with itself, one and one, because there's no separation. So the two ones, even if it's represented by conduits or people or things happening, it's all managed by the same puzzle master, the same hand maestro. So yeah, you could say three is that harvest, is that creation. Once pure yin becomes pure yang, and then communicates a dialogue back with itself, it then goes to that place of subconscious and develops more an idea on that fifth dimension, more intention, and the real big cogs and pivotal points set for growth, and being aware of that, and idealization, and getting intuition, and getting like a blueprint, not something that you're planning in the physical world with steps and structures necessarily, but establishing the dialogue back so that there is an idea of what to paint now with the wand and these four different colors manifested by the wand entering the womb of darkness. Basically going back to that because it's the easiest one to depict all this. Let's establish a two-way dialogue, and this represents the whisper of infinite knowing through the veil. Alright? Through the veil, and from that dialogue and from the word that it I guess, is spoken, you could say, in the third card. Two people meet, or two conduits meet, and they beep together, and they communicate together and create a dialogue, or they create a thing by co-acting, by co-producing. They create a life, So this can relate to childbirth, and it relates to harvest and abundance and fertility. It's the most sexy card. It's 3, which geometrically is the triangle. And this is a 0. This is the point in the middle of the 0. This is the line connecting the point to the outer edge of the 0, which is where the tree of life starts to really unfold, I guess. And that's just 2. This is your third dimension. And it's your third dimension because this is returning yang back to yin after you've established yin turning into yang. High Priestess brings it back up. And then from that point, reflects back, kind of like a hologram. One beam that's split into 2, and then one bounces off a mirror, and they both meet again at the same point. And where they meet again, there's 2 things. That splits here. This is somewhere here it splits, and it comes back, and it bounces back from here to 3. So 2 1s, a 1 and a 0 creates a line of dialogue between them. This 1 and the 0, there's a dialogue established. And this is the spoken word which created the foundations. And 4 is about the home work foundations. It's about the emperor. It's about setting laws, limitations to facilitate harmony, progress, maintenance and abundance. But it's all about discipline. And it's like the mother and the father, 3 and 4. And here's the 4th dimension of this is kind of like time and space. Here is pure birth and relaxing in the luxury of harvest and being ample with nourishment and all this stuff. This is more hard work and discipline and controlling and managing and with authority, and it's more like severity, and this is mercy. So 4 is like the picture frame that really much it contains the creation of the word that was established as yang, created a mirror within itself and entered it, and that was the action of 1. And that went back and established an idea by having a dialogue with itself, and by its spoken idea and vision and word manifests, gets put in a frame, and then from that image on the wall, 1 stands back in the card number 5. The thing you got to understand with 5 is it's got a straight top with a round body, right? And the straight top, back in Phoenician times, where the actual numbers represented, characters and actual things, animals and gestures and stuff like this. 5 represents, 9 represents something looking backwards before it turns around, separates, and becomes 1 and 0. And that 0 is a new womb for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 to grow, and then that flips around. The 1 separates from the 9 and becomes a 0 and a 1. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and it grows and grows. And that's how numerology works. You go to 9, and then you go back to 1, because 10 doesn't really get counted. Here, the 10 is the wheel of fortune. Once he gets the hermit in number 9, once the fool is back on top of his mountain, the wheel turns. Once the fool is back in the mountain. Sorry about the shadow. It's not the best lighting in here. So anyway, so you got the pivotal point of 5. And the face of it is basically, it's looking forward straight. Looking forward straight like that, right? 5, straight ahead. So it's, this 5 is looking to the next chapter. But then the bottom half is like a hook, like a belly, okay? So it represents like a full belly and a cup that is open. If you look at the 5, it's open to the first part of the process, which is 4 steps, which is a yin-yang, 2 seeds in a thing, And I'd say that you'd have yin becoming yang, and this is number 1, the first spark, big bang. So it's like, this would be pure yang, this would be yang yin, this would be, no, that would be pure yin, this would be going back, establishing connection back with pure yin. This would be yin yang. So this is like creating the 4 elements, going back to itself, and then kind of this is the same thing happening on the next level. It's taken those elements, put them together, and built something greater, a crop, and then maybe going back to itself And maybe this kind of represents each time it gives itself a mirror to look into. It gets an idea, and then from there it acts again and builds something greater from that idea. And then now it has like more power, more resources, more knowledge and experience, and more confidence and control. But he needs more discipline and limitations. Otherwise, he might get out of control like a tyrant, you know. And they can be dogmatic too and hard-headed and lost in the limitations. It means if it's upside down in a reading, it can mean structures in your home and your work. Maybe too controlling, and you know, as a leader, as an emperor, you got to set limits in your society to facilitate harmony. Otherwise, there'll be discord and chaos, and not good for those that want to stay in power. So you got to set limits that foster all the good things, as well as keep people in place and keep everything flowing in harmony. All right, so 5 therefore represents the belly gestating and the nourishment received from the first 4 phases of this painting being created, this fool creating a mirror to look into and get an idea, and then imagine a visual action that creates and fucking like a organic simulated bam, like the sun's encoded energy just nourishes, revitalizes things to generate and to live, and we sustain the fire and pass it on through gene rations until the generations die, and then that fire, that bloodline, the water, the salt, the fire, the electricity, that's lost. Candles out, no longer passed on. The rally of the torch, that's another story. So this is the physical creation here. This is literally the fool becoming something that is established with resources and in control and is now managing and building something. This represents foundations of having established after creating something from an idea, after getting resources that follows an initial new beginning, an initial opportunity, an initial something entirely different, or going with something that you don't know, because it will allow you to get new resources and create new things and get new intel and recon and information of value to help you better get the outcomes you want physically, which you then barricade and secure and start regulating. And this is, at that point, if we're talking in that context, this is when you start introducing, if you're taking over a place, you introduce religion after you've colonialized and indoctrinize everyone. And that's kind of like the transition. You got the belly full of this experience of kind of, you know, taking over and recon and fucking stealing all the loot and rape and pillage and now ruling, and Game of Thrones style. And this guy's like, yeah, Joffrey was the coolest dude in the world. Guy, I don't know. I don't really know. Because he's gestating the history of this and spitting it out with a focused view. And that represents that you're using the nourishment of the past 4 cards and these first yin-yang seeds and tree state. And like, yeah, this is the second part of the yin-yang. So you can go into the seeds even deeper. Another yin-yang here with the 2 seeds and the states. And this is literally the middle card. Just right there. As the 2 pillars. Transferring what has been learned now through this part of the experience. Now that something's been built and limits are set and you've maintained as much as you can. This, you could say this represents the womb, conception, gestation. Sorry, that's like, I guess, insemination? I don't know. The moment they conceive, is that the word? I'm so confused right now. The womb without a sperm in it. The womb taking life and putting it into a physical vessel with all the elements there, and then establishing that back, giving it a soul, and then it's born, and then it learns its limitations and limitations of the world as a child. Dog eat dog world, physicality. Maslow's pyramid. It's all about getting your resources together, harvest, nourishing yourself, listening to your intuition, establishing the dialogue and acting with the source of just like being guided, not just by ideology, because that will always fail, but by what you know and what you feel and sense is right to do. And then this is the emotions. Once you're in Maslow, you've developed your physical level, you can develop the emotions. And from 5, once you've gestated this and you're looking forwards determinately, thinking, where am I going to fucking use this energy? That's the Lovers. 6, which is a full belly now. You've gestated the energy and you're looking at options between your head and your heart. I don't have 7 at the moment. But that's the chariot getting his horses together, polarities, which you balance here, and then you end up this guy at the top of a mountain. So I was rushing it, trying to finish it by the 30-minute mark. So here you got the lovers, fuck it, at 6. And in the Kabbalah, 6 represents Tipperet, and Tipperet means beauty, and this represents the introduction of the heart moving away from the physical world. And this is like when 3 is the physical world. This is when you're born, and this is you experiencing the 4th dimension, time, and learning through time, because time is where suffering is. Thanks, Kronos. And then we got 5. Yep. And then taking what is gained here now and thinking, okay, now we need to give it that next level of emotionally compelling, give it a narrative. This is like creating the baby. This is indoctrinating it, or training it, or programming it. This is like taking information in and letting it change you, taking it in so that it causes a change in your behavior and making it more practical in that sense as well. So it's babies just learn the limitations and all this, and now they're thinking, okay, what's the next level? And they move from their head of now understanding limitations. They move away from the head, and now they move to the heart. And this can represent the opportunity between 2 pathways. Your head wants one, your heart, or your head might not be on the same page if it's upside down. Or you might have to make a compromise or sacrifice on one or the other, depending on the surrounding cards. But 6 is about that full belly. After the 5 is finished, looking and making the decision, it closes up. So it's kind of like it's still observing, because it's open. It's still absorbing the essence of 1, 2, 3, 4, the 3rd and 4th dimension, and then channeling it from a physical to formational framework and foundation to a more emotion. This is the chariot, so it's usually like this dude on a fucking chariot with 2 horses, black and white, and you got these kind of like lots of speed and shit happening. It's moving manically, like it's not tearing the chariot asunder, but he's keeping it together, and that's the idea. You got to keep. Once you're at 6 and you get to 7, 6 represents moving from pure physicality, Maslow's pyramid, insecurity, just surviving. If you're hungry or horny or violent, angry or whatever. If you're lacking something on that basic Maslow's pyramid first level, you can't be there emotionally trying to compromise with people and not letting the beast of your lower nature take control of your higher awareness, because that's what can happen. You as a child developing, once you've into a full-fledged baby, now walking and learning, manipulating the world after being physically born, after being spiritually incarnated and physically manifested as chosen and willed by Source. And now it's like, now a narrative. It chooses the heart and the emotional narrative. 7 is the chariot. So it's a chariot is like it progresses you. The chariot moves you forward. But if you don't look where you're going, and if you don't keep your horses together, the black and white horses on this, then yeah, you will tear your chariot asunder. You will go in random directions, and that basically represents moving. If you're an infant and you've just learned the limitations of the world, dog eat dog world, now you're thinking more like socializing, understanding other people, compromising needs. This is interacting with other people, and this situation of head and heart is reflected here. It can be to an extreme if the card's upside down sometimes, representing that the beast and the impulsive nature of the ego and the brute is getting control, and is a wrestling match with someone who's trying to reason. But this generally represents an 8, so it's balanced between 2 parts of us that are natural, and these aren't fighting. She's actually really chilled and quite graceful, and he's not really violent. It's like they're kind of playing, being affectionate and working together, and that's kind of what 8 is. It's accepting after 7. 7 is the challenges that come with learning. Once you've got that first step of Maslow's pyramid sorted, learning how to respect other people's emotions, and you get into these fights where just your ego reactions and your triggers and your anxieties take over. And yeah, you make a new choice. You end up with the horse and all the black and white horses and needing direction. And the idea of the chariot is that there's often obstacles and adversaries and opponents. It can mean that travel and progress forward, but you got to keep your shit together, and there's going to be challenges because it's a new path that you're not aware of yet. And that's the challenge. It can lead to that. If the card's upside down in tarot, it means you need to go back to the previous. So that means you need to go back to the chariot. You because you've made a choice given what you've got to work with of where you want to develop your affections and emotions, okay, and what makes you feel happy. Chariot is progressing towards that new terrain and being mindful of any rocks in the way, and keeping your horses together, and just, balancing everything, trying to be aware of things that you haven't learned yet, be open to seeing it and balancing it. And then you go 8. After you've got your horses balanced and you've made it to your destination, there becomes either a resting period where there's balance achieved between the horses now, between the two different states, yin and yang, that you need to bring together. And ultimately, this is kind of like yang, the creation of life, going back to yin. If you want to take it like a fractal, like from yin going into yang, from source and waves going into yang particle, and feminine going to masculine. I'd say it's what was I looking at here? What was I just looking at? So many meanings just correlating. Now I'll close this up because it's kind of carrying on a bit. But so this is the balance that you get to in the two horses, yin and yang. That's right. And this is yin and this is yang. Yeah, that's what I was saying. This is yin. This is yang. Sorry. Kind of yin. This is like yin. Yin, yang, yin and yang. That's yin. No, this is yang and yin. Back to yang. So it doesn't go back fully to yin. It goes from yin to full yang, and then from yang to yin. This represents the connection of yin to yang. It doesn't go back before the connection is sustained, like a hook. So that's yin to yang. Empress is yang. No, it's feminine. It's feminine. There's so many tricky things, you really got to find the overall compromise. Ultimately, you end up as this guy. Once you've got that balance between your heart and your desire and your passions, what makes you burn alive against all reason and odds and perils, things you pursue, that's the light. It's a natural thing, and psychologists would advise, be hedonistic in the moment, because that's your fuel. Be positive in your past, that's your roots, and think about your future, that's your wings to new destinations, But you got to be hedonistic and accept, and not like, I can't masturbate because Jesus said I shouldn't, and all this shit, like you're going to go to hell and shit, like not feeling guilty and body issues, is being okay with your desires and yourself as a whole, and you're accepting your limitations, that you are part beast and you're part angel. And this is kind of like that balance of 8 between the creation of a life form, learning of the world, developing a narrative, and maintaining a balance with what was just a pure physical beast, that critter that has now achieved back to the sun. You look where the cards where the sun's out, and there's the full 1, and you got 8. So like I said, 8, it's kind of like 1, it's 2, it's 3 at the juncture in the middle, 3, and 4, if you kind of look at it as it's 1, 2, 3, 2, and then 1 in the middle. So altogether 4. So you've even got the whole yin yang within the 8 figure 8 symbol. That here you see the sun. It represents that solar powered life, encoded energy, Mother Nature, Mother Nurture, genetically, physically, DNA-listically. It channels and creates a platform of physicality and a foundation physically, and then associates a more meaningful narrative, and it ties it to an emotional outcome in terms of giving it import. Why does this matter to me? It can be a matter of conviction, emotion, a drive, but either way it has you on a chariot, and you strive to keep a balance. You end up as this guy, and that's the balance. That's the balance of yin and yang here, expressed in 8. That's why it's back to the sun, because now 0 has gone through a polarity of 2 different, like a balloon being twisted in half, and the sun's back now. I think what I see is the connection, and now it's advanced to that step, and the card after strength is 9. figure looking back, just like the number 9. Typically on top of a mountain, there's a snake transformation at the bottom of his foot, and awareness now, looking forward and moving with him. It's the idea of the hermit that takes time out in isolation, and the story is the hermit actually the fool, having met the magician and learned of the resources he has to build, and the ideas, and the connection with himself and the source, and remaining connected with the spirituality, and hearing that whisper inside, and closing your eyes where the light is blinding. And that's what that's about. It's like, the fool meets this guy, he finds out, oh, I got earth, air, fire, water, gets an idea of what to do with those elements, creates something, sets some limits and laws in place, creates a doctrine, goes on a like emotional quest, finds turbulence and movement to different areas and perils, finds balance, some struggle by acceptance, peace and harmony with the A is achievable. And then after he's achieved that balance of the physicality merging with the emotional, he reflects back at the end of his journey from 1 to 9. That's really, the other cards are just the same. 1 to 9 is the primary, so these first 9 cards are very important. Damn shadow. So yeah, now he looks back. He no longer holds the stick behind him out of sight, not knowing until he meets this guy that... This can represent somebody that helps you initiate something and says, oh dude, you got these things, why don't you try doing this and get, you got that whole thing. These are people that can see opportunities and how to put things together and make shit happen, channel ideas into action and form. So this guy meets the magician at number 1 because he's 0, which means he's clueless, he's not even born yet, it's not even a conceived idea, he's just pure potential. So it's all that transformation, pure innocence, listening to your intuition, being wary of cliffs and make sure you can fly if you're going to jump off one. Carrying the sack behind you, containing all the elements and resources you have to deal with on your journey through the major arcana, through life, basically. And by card number 9, from 0, you've reconnected 1 with 0 for starters, and that's the end of it. That's ancient symbolism there. You've reconnected it, and now you've turned what was carried behind you in front of you. You're now aware of, and you're using what was you might have been ignorant and naive about when you start new journeys, and you've got to listen to your intuition to guide you from perils as well. But you got to also take the opportunities. This could represent that it's ignorance, and you got to be mindful of this new thing you're endeavoring in. But this guy, now he's learned, he's already gone through figuring out the world and choices and balancing shit out. So he's taking time in isolation, and a lot of people I see these days are breaking up in relationships. And I think it could be a whiplash movement to the bleeding effects of conditioning, people being raised by people who were generations ago, not too long ago, were raised, especially the 60s, way of like how women are and females, and it's a man's world, and a woman's role as being the second sex, and her value and functions determined by the man she courts, and he's the provider, and she's like the mother and nourisher and satisfier, and you know what I mean. There's some of that bleeds out today, and its effect and its conditioning. And now, why is that relevant? It was relevant to a point I wanted to make. Don't know if I can remember, but the idea is that the fool has journeyed. I like having little breaks sometimes. It makes it easier when you sandwich chunks of information that makes good sense between utter nonsense, and then coming back to it. So the fool, he learns what's inside his bag. Gets the idea, gives birth, paints it, puts it on the frame, builds a story about the picture, and then like someone falls in love with him because of the picture. There's some dissonance, but they resolve it. And this, yeah, that's what I was saying. There's a lot of women, I think, a whiplash effect to that thing I was talking about, the 60s, and how everything was a man's world and a woman's role in the world. I think they mistake masculinity as meaning authority and independence and sovereignty. So and because they're raised from the outside in, completely opposite to how males are typically raised from the inside out. So they never see eye to eye. A male wants qualitative acknowledgement and recognition and appreciation, and the woman doesn't care for qualitative shit. It's needy and boring and heavy. She wants the quantitative stuff. Tall, dark, handsome, funny, gives me butterflies, physical sensations, impulse, pleasure, fun. Girls just want to have a journey, and so do boys. And you gotta be free. Free to grow, to be born, to make choices, take risks, try to find the balance and accept all levels of the self. the primitive self and the gut feeling, as well as your head, and your heart and your head, basically. But girls, going back to this, I keep going away from the point, leaving their partners, I'm finding, more than guys. I know this is a trend, and I think it's a growing part of an inevitable movement that needs to happen. For a woman has the excuse that on a micro level, the girl says, is that, yeah, I don't know who I am because I don't know who I am without this person, without having a boyfriend. And that's very much been an ingrained thing in the culture that's been passed on, in films. And I think with Facebook, there's an overall consensus being achieved of people being able to share a single source of information and consolidate. And now people are a lot more careful and stepping around with what they're saying, because they can't just say whatever in the certain places. People have established a greater sense of a shared law and a shared consensus of what is right and wrong and expected and normal and all this stuff. All right. So in this environment of being more aware and open and more possibilities than ever and acceptance and freedom and whatever, you don't want to be in this position. So how can a woman as a culture of women, as units, but as a whole unit, as consciousness operating through females, how can they get to know what they are and what they are capable of and how that could appear and affect the world if they do not, as a culture, enough gain a balance and I think separation. Once you've achieved or you've escaped an imbalanced situation, either way you go to the top of your mountain that you started off on as a fool. You turned what you were unaware of as your soul, as you enter life from the womb with elements to play with, and you've turned those unknown resource potential elements of your karmic blueprint and plan into a manifested journey, and now it's turned into light. What was unknown is now that which is used to reveal you, and that which you held that behind you on the stick is now used as a tool either to fight with or used for different things, to walk with, to support and aid and facilitate. So you're not using a tool wastefully, willfully whistling, singing songs with things behind your head, and you're just like, whatever, and you're not really thinking, you're just happy dandy here. You're reflecting on your journey to get closure, and I think women are doing this. I'm detecting, I sense that. And just intuitively, consciously, because we're all connected to the same consciousness, and I sense pattern, at least where I live. And it's been a gradual one, but it's beginning to get kind of exponential, but slightly, still proportionately, but it's increasing. And it's increasing by increasingly increasing multitudes of slightly increasing decibels. You know what I mean? I know it doesn't make complete sense, but so that's the hermit. It's kind of like the idea, the full unifull and the full magic mirror of the magician Yang, physical particulate mirror that the wave face, the faceless face looks into to see itself. You got 0, full, and you got 1 that enters it. And you've even got that symbolism, kind of the 0 and the 1 right there. And that's 9. So you could say that this is like the merger of somebody once again looking back over the mountain that they just journeyed over. And they've still got all the tools, like they're taking like that information and putting it back to light, back to the source. And they're letting go, they're cutting away, they're taking time out maybe, or they might be removing things from their life, or transmuting attachments, and they need isolation and retreat sometimes, go camping or whatever, spend some time away, just chill, put your hair down, and they need to process until they're ready and they've got closure and are ready to move on. They've learned their lessons and they've transmuted the physical into the metaphysical lessons learned, and their knowledge and light of understanding and wisdom. Like a wizard. This is like the fool, right? This is kind of like the wizard, really. And he's taken what a fool can be so haphazard with and not even know that they have a totally new beginning of a journey of physicality, and the lion and the maiden and the masculine, the feminine, and the heart and the beast, and Lucifer and fucking Jesus consciousness, right? Christ consciousness, and the sin of the flesh, Christ consciousness. the sin of the flesh, right? But that's what we are. But this is looking over it, and once you've learned, you walk down the mountain, and guess who you are again? This guy. Try to wrap it up in an hour. I always fail. You turn around and you separate into 10, which is Wheel of Fortune, which is yin and yang again. He who is gaining, she who has gained, he who is losing, he who has lost, and 5 being that pivotal point. Blindfolded, balance, achieved. So everything that fills, there's a season for it to unfill, empty, expire. That's the nature of the universe. Everything feeds until it is fed upon, and that's the nature of the universe. So the Fool. What was I going to say about the Fool? I was going to give a closure thing about the Fool. I was going to give something about the Fool, and I totally forgot. But basically, it's going from folly and, the journey of balancing the beast with the saint and consciousness with your physicality and sensuality, and knowing how to respect other people's sensuality and other people's physicality and boundaries. And then in the next level of cards, from 11 to the world, 21, because 0 is not encountered, but there are 22 cards. 21, the world. That completes the next 2 levels of development, the mental and spiritual of the Maslow's Pyramid Tarot, which I just decided I'm going to call this, because why the fuck not? It'd be interesting. Might even revise it a little bit. But thanks for watching, guys. I'm not going to make it too much longer, because Jesus. You guys take care. And yeah, I think it's interesting when you understand that these are concepts of yin-yang. 4, 2 seeds of 4. 5 is a pivotal point. 555 being NEW, new, which is the meaning of 5 as vibrations. Time of change. If you see the numbers 555, times have changed for you, buddy. And 9 is coming to the end of something, needing to look back as a number 9 on that mountain, the journey, and then turning around, separating, like I said, 0 from the 1, as the Fool again, into the next half. And then, so the world occurs, and then the Fool goes down as the Hermit after the world, which is changing seasons and moving to the next cycle. Big karmic shift, pivotal. So after you've learned, and you got to detach, you got to spend that time to learn your lessons before you start repeating the same mistakes and hurting yourself, suffering so unnecessarily. And I'll go into the next two portions in time. But yeah, on the next portion. This is portion 1. Portion 2 is coming. But that's 9. Once you're ready and you've processed and you've learned your lessons, you stop hitting. Don't just kick yourself when shit happens. You made bad decisions or wasted time. Like, learn and improve through spending enough time alone. And we're seeing that happen with lots of people, not just women, but people in general. They're realizing the importance of really needing to have your shit together, because I guess people are just having their shit called out all too much on Facebook forums, and it's a little bit like, oh shit. So maybe that is causing everyone to be like, oh, focus on your etiquette, and causing them to be more introspective and I don't know, like isolated, if you're looking at it like that. But this is more like, going on this journey of getting resources together, connecting back to your heart about, okay, what do I want to do with these resources? What's the idea of something I want to make, shift, create artistically? And then you create it, and then you set up a market for it, or you set up its system that's attached to the thing that's created, or the function, and the parameters to govern and maintain and regulate its operations, right? And here is giving words, and I really want to work in connecting it better. But it's basically taking information more into a narrative. Is really how I see it. Is the ego narrative that forms once you understand the dog-eat-dog world of limitations and you've been born. This is connecting with source again, and the pillars again. Like here, the high priestess. This is more intuition. This is more wisdom. And wisdom is something more pragmatic than intuition. Intuition is good for guiding, for overarching and deeper, feelings to things. Wisdom is something you can pick up from wizards here or there, and it'll be useful for all time. Intuition is something that might save your life more often, but occur much less. You know what I'm saying? And yeah. You need to go through all that, balancing attaining something, building something, setting the limitations and discipline to maintain and regulate it. And then, yeah, what I was just saying, and I've already forgotten, I'm a bit tired. And then typically after you've achieved that, it's good to aspire to the next level, and make it more meaningful and focus on the emotional incentives and values and motivations that once you're like a moving, functional fucking puppet now, now it's like, what are my motivations? What maketh me feel good? You go to the chariot car, you know, oh, let's see where these horses take us. Because that makes me feel good. And you go on a horse ride, for better or worse. You have a bit of a think about it and go, that was a nice horse ride. Alright, cheerio. And yeah, sorry guys, sorry for everyone that is suffering from that. Suffering from just this happening. But it's a necessary step in order for the seasons, for us to adjust to the seasons. It's been a case of basically the feminine becoming enmeshed with the masculine. So to remedy this, it's like a partnership that turns sour once the male becomes too domineering and the woman becomes secondary. There's no going back to like, let's try a new way of doing things, and they're still cuddling like it's the same. It's more of one of those situations of like, I think we need time apart. That's what it's about. And it's understandable why, because they've gone through a hardship where there's a lot of confusion, a lot of bad indoctrination, bad body images and issues. Authority complexes and foundations and law and limitations. Shut out from intuition, out of control, stupid, and not aware of the resources and how to combine them to create things to then use to create effects, to then use to create a fucking occurrence, an event. Not to say women are stupid, I'm just painting with extreme terminology so it's obvious. It's just symbols, no judgment here, folks. I love you all deeply and sincerely with all of this one's heart. You know, and yeah, we struggle. What's going to make us happy? And it is something that progresses us. It gives us a greater sense of balance, and then it gives out. This is kind of like the image and the reflection of the face of God. But this is like God, the invisible womb, creating a physical mirror with 1, 2, 3, High Priestess and the Empress, the physical dimension, and that was its expression. This is just looking at it in terms of how to create a reality. Okay, the third dimension of reality and physicality and the elements all combined with an idea, with the elements and with nourishment and fertilization and sunlight. You have a creation. And if you combine this is moving from a foundation on to, like I said, give it more emotional, meaningful, sophisticated development following, or different following, and make it more meaningful, something emotional. It's really the development of the heart, development of the body, development of the physical manifested face. This is like the physical face. This represents here the birth of the face and the makeup that's put on. This represents the story of the face. Alright, and the idea is the physical face is just yin, the faceless consciousness, God of consciousness, yin, 0, manifesting through the lightning flash of the Kabbalah tree of life as yang. Okay, and becoming real, and then moving from a place of that foundation to something more meaningful. And this is a faceless God, gaining a face, creating a narrative of an identity, and choosing to go on a romantic quest. It involves like a chariot going out of control. It involves lusty and robust scenes and great makeup sequences. And it's compelling, and it leaves one really reflecting. Oh yeah.